Very don't know you want to maintain the vision that don't the temple
Let us cultivate the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. With that kind of altruistic or bodhicitta motivation, that we should all participate in this teaching. In other words, what I just, reminded you, or all of ourselves as a matter of fact, that is to cultivate the altruistic motivation or bodhicitta motivation. What that involves is, the ultimate spiritual goal that we are seeking, which is complete enlightenment or Buddhahood, for the sake of both self and others. And in order to realize that goal, we must do two things. We must do purification practice. We have to purify ourselves of mental obscurations and negativities. We need to practice virtue, or that which is positive, and through these practices, we would like to be able to accomplish complete enlightenment soon. And so as a part of that whole thing, we should always think that we are participating in this teaching so that we learn about, the practices of purification and cultivation, which would lead us to our ultimate spiritual goal. So So what I've just mentioned is that we need to do two types of practice to be able to become completely enlightened being called Buddha. We need to do purification practice and we need to do cultivation practice. And, so purification involves purifying ourselves of all defilements or delusions and negativities. And now one may think that, oh my gosh, how could I do that? There are, too many delusions and negativities to be purified. Maybe that's just impossible thing to do. But the thing to remember is we really don't need to have that kind of a doubt or, mindset, because our historical teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, our original guru, if you will, or Lama, has clearly said that delusions, however, many they are, or negativities for that matter, they are purifiable. They can be purified.
The Garrison, Maranchini, Digwa the Dribat Samalo, so the same tall, same time Drea Maris. The man on the lover was Ranjulia Vene, Digwa Migi, Rick Samalope, Rang same and Derugini de Armato, same time Drea Maris.
And so theoretically speaking, it is very possible to purify ourselves of all delusions and negativities. And here is, one of the, theoretical principles why that is possible, if you will. As Geshe quoted the lines from memory, which basically state that delusions which are inside our mind, they are temporarily there. They are adventitious delusions. They reside in our mind. That means, they are quite closely, in the proximity of our mind, or they are really related with our mind, but they have not contaminated the very nature of our mind. In other words, our mind and delusions are not one and the same thing. They are together, very closely together, if you will, but they are still very distinct and separate. So because delusions are in our mind just temporarily, it's not their permanent address, if you will. So therefore, theoretically, that's the principle, based upon which we can say that delusions can be purified.
Tomata going to Sosorovas. Then I Sosu any good that rang simnagi. That Dela Chavi, Guela Chavi Tomate, Naranzo, that the one may give you the sign at the Tomalo, Guela Chavi Tomanako, when Derunda, when you pass Sosu Cherunda de Aris.
So to use an example to illustrate this point of how delusions and our mind are closely together, but nonetheless they are distinct and separate, and therefore they can be separated from one another. I would like to give you this example of dirty laundry. Well, when we have dirty laundry, we need to do our laundry, wash it. So what we recognize is that our clothes have become dirty, so they need to be cleaned. But the clothes and dirt are not inseparably, become one. But they're just, they're together. Yes, they are, very closely linked together, but they are different, and therefore we can do laundry and we get back clean clothes. So dirt of our clothes are, can be purified in the sense that delusions in our mind are like the dirt on our clothes, the laundry. And the laundry itself could be thought of as our mind. So when we put the dirty laundry in and do our laundry, what we get back is clean laundry. In the same way, when we do our purification practice, we purify the dirt-like delusions, but the laundry-like mind stays clean.
No, no. It's on that. Century rangi we 7 years. No. Chamalo. Senji Sokchain is Tomaloka, Semja Rangi, the young Vesawa, quarter round the Betama Mason, Vesay Rangi Chaduris.
In the Buddhist literatures, it is clearly, argued and presented and defended that the true nature of our mind is clear light. When we say our mind, we basically mean, all sentient beings, not just us humans. Clear light is, if you will, the true nature of our minds. In other words, that our mind in its true nature is pure and pristine. It just temporarily is contaminated by delusions and negativities.
So, Simki any Nilu of the Kangate, Sevita, Shango, Tomatan Mavin Sente, Simtita, Samaki Chango.
So when we do purification practice, what happens is that as we purify more and more of the negativities and delusions of our mind, then the clear light nature of our mind, it started to shine more and more. That's what is happening.
So that Sanjay Compatops is any that Choni but the Yons John, Tony Yons John, and that similar Yevi that Never Tamalo, similar Yevi, Never Tamal Pet, that's Hasuna, and then Sanjay Compators.
So now to put this in a broader context and connect it with the ultimate spiritual goal that we are seeking, which is Buddhahood, complete enlightenment. What is complete enlightenment, if you ask? Complete enlightenment is a state of mind where it is completely free of, it's pure of all mental obscurations, delusions, their imprints, and negativities. So our mind is completely pure and pristine, and we have also fulfilled the two types of accumulation of merit called punya in Sanskrit, and accumulation of wisdom or insight called jnana. So when we have fulfilled, or when we have gained consummation in these two types of accumulation of merit and wisdom, and we have completely purified our mind of all delusions and negativities, that state of mind is called enlightened mind.
That Shailen of someone that Zochi Garrison, Nyamu Draba, the Hiji Divine with Pajang, Mabze. And then Sunan the Hitoni was so sad. That thing Tony was Johnson, that Dini Shan, Tony Johnson, Sanjivers.
To put it in another way, if you ask what is the main responsibility of a spiritual practitioner, we as spiritual practitioners, what should be the main practice we should be doing? Okay, if you ask, well, here it is. We need to purify our mind of the two types of mental obscuration. One is called delusions, or obscuration to nirvana, personal liberation, and obscuration to omniscient wisdom. So we need to do purification practice, purify our mind of those two types of mental obscuration, and we need to complete the practice of cultivation, which involves fulfilling the two types of accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom. So once we have completed those two practices, purification and cultivation, accumulation, then we are done with our work, and that's where we become Buddha.
Oh, nice. That's Sanjay Compatopsi, Pataran, which you do, Zubo Tandang Ranso, you haven't the taller Sanjay Compat Tobit Sheji and there is.
So, what I'm trying to say here is that when we work for complete enlightenment or Buddhahood, we should not think in some way that, oh, complete enlightenment is a great distance away, like billions of, miles away, and we need to make that like a travel, of billions, miles, and then we get there. It is not a geographical location. It's not a territory, that we can travel to. It is more of a state of mind. We can be where we are in now. And so through our practice and development, we get to our spiritual destination, which is complete enlightenment.
Mi lutin lang yor wa shecha mi lutin de lang ni mi lutin de pam ta ma zo zhen zhen ri lu ta pe ma hi gong la zobo de ge yam de nang sem de ge ne nang sem de duk rang le ji pang pe zobo ni mo de de zan ma ba ji ta li tol zo ji de.
So we are fortunate in that we have this precious human life or fully endowed human form. So we have basically human mind and human body. Well, there's not much we can do to change our human form. I think in the footnote, what Geshe probably meaning is we cannot change this human form into the form of some other kind of animal or a being.
In this lifetime.
In this lifetime. But our really main concern and what we should be doing and we could do is changing our mind. We need to transform our mind. So without need to do much of a change or do anything to our body, we try to effect tremendous change in our mind so that being a human being in a human body, we can have great spiritual, spiritual advancement.
So that that Sanji could start to top Shabalane, Tony Sa, that Tony Sabal, the Kurgus, Sochi Garrison, Sanji sent that Tony to be here, Simbakita, Naran gave a Karadrubian, gave a Karadrubian, Sanji sent down, Tony to be here, Simbaki.
So we need to accumulate merit and wisdom. Technically speaking, we need to, accumulate two types of accumulation. Accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom. And how do we do that? And what is essential for doing that, if you ask, is that whatever positive action we do, or whatever virtue we create and accumulate, we need to do it grounded in or by way of cultivating the altruistic mind of enlightenment or bodhicitta and cultivating the wisdom realizing emptiness as it is. So bodhicitta and the wisdom realizing emptiness as it is are essential for us to fulfill the two types of accumulation of merit and accumulation of wisdom. So we need to kind of think very broadly and sort of in a sense of it's a spacious sense. In that, and how do we create and accumulate virtue if we wonder, do something positive? Well, as I often speak about this thing, that each of us has three things: body, speech, and mind. And by using these three things we have, we call the three doors. So by way of our physical, verbal, and mental actions, we create and accumulate positive actions. So physically we can do prostrations to holy beings. We can use our body to benefit and help others. And so these are some of the examples how physically we can do practice or we can accumulate virtue.
Mi yindale ani pe digwan de sadu san susu ani pe luji gon roba shero sengna ta tali she yamaras tinne maras pena digwa chan mebe ta rang ani lute pe kyo ta ne ta gewe shole da gen pemba pentobech nebe rimai be pemba dobech guyares.
In other words, what I'm trying to say here is that we use our body, to do something that is beneficial and virtue. We should not use our body in any negative way, in the sense like if somebody is doing something negative and he or she or they need our help, physical help to do it, we should not participate in that action or activity because that is not positive, So do not use our body to harm others, but rather use our body to help and benefit others. That's what I'm talking about.
Ane nga goni karisana ane hindi shebata ane sanji da chwe da gindir shamdra shiyata daga na yida susu ane pike sanji chi ane ndo loba da da tindi ke ane nga goni ta gewa kani na duju nga changba da ten zong nga changba tindi kuno yang tabi goni shegu kuyares.
And we could also use our speech to do positive things. So some of the examples, that I will give is that we recite prayers, or we can recite, prayers to take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. We can read, sutras. We can recite mantras. Of course, all of these things must be done with positive motivation. If the motivation is gone wrong or not proper, then it would be a different case. But with proper motivation, if we recite prayers, we do chanting, or we go for refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha verbally, and read sutras and so forth, that's how we engage our speech in positive actions.
Ta yiji goni hago ta gomji chande yiji gon sang tang yiji gon deba sheba ta deba la tang yi deba yiji deba ngonde deba sheba ta tni yar che changzu yiji gon deba sheba ta ani yiji gon ta ge le du cha zo ta yiji gon dugu ya.
And of course, mind is the forerunner of all our actions. And when we talk about doing something positive or even doing practice, we are basically talking about engaging in our mind in positive actions. Of course, we can cultivate faith, in dharma and dharma teachers. But the faith is of different kinds. We can talk about clear faith. We can talk about aspiring faith. We can talk about faith as conviction and so forth. Or when we talk about doing meditation, that which really does meditation or should be doing meditation is our mind. So we engage our mind in meditation, and that's how we positively create actions through mind.
다나 얘기 뼈 빠르나 다 근데 충충 근데 인자 근데 참말로 아니 선남들 이게 초 아니 좋아야 다 탑힐 탑스 좋아 시주할 때 그런 건 시고다 시고라서 이주건 시고라서.
Of course, there are like zillions of other, practices or actions that we could do which accord with our practice, and simple things like, making offering of lights or what we call butter lamps, or like the offering incense. Well, these things seems to be very simple practices, but by cultivating proper motivation, these simple actions could contribute to the accumulation of merit.
가래에서는 랑그 빼기 빠비나 따티 안에 생기탄유든 산지 공부 톱이 최대 빠기 인선 뜻 안에 배기 상의 아무 땅비나 장주지 셈지 셈비 다 차야고 그랬지.
Let me just specify what I mean by, cultivating proper motivation to do such actions. Let's say by cultivating the altruistic mind of enlightenment as our motivation. Basically, we are seeking complete enlightened state for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of a motivation and a vision, we have a vision, we make offering of an incense, right? Incense stick. The practice we do seems to be simple, but because of that vision and altruistic motivation, our action or the practice, it helps us to accumulate merit that leads to complete enlightened state.
Ta rangi jitroba me sameta rangi jitroba chi me ane min ta tawe phar tawa cham ma to rangi jitroba me same ta tende ki sam kang bi na ane son yi cho khong ro ge des cha cha yi ki ting le son de yi cho yin ga du sin joy ji zo ji ge des.
So by cultivating the altruistic mind of enlightenment, or we call bodhicitta motivation, we make a simple offering of incense to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. That simple act or practice or action of ours could help us to accumulate merit, leading us to complete enlightened state. Now, additionally, if we think of what we call the ultimate nature of all the things involved in this simple practice, that is to say that the objects to whom we make the offering, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and what is being offered to them, in this case is incense, who is making the offering, we as practitioners, all these what we call factors involved in this practice are empty of inherent existence, meaning that nothing involved in this exists in and of itself. Nothing is inherently existent. Everything is labeled by terms and concepts. So everything is mere labels, basically, and if we reflect on that nature, that there is no such thing as inherently existent here. Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha to whom I make offerings, they are empty of inherent existence. Offering that I'm making, incense, is empty of inherent existence. I, as practitioner who makes the offering, is empty of inherent existence. If we reflect on that, then that part of our practice helps us to accumulate what we call wisdom. So that's how, by doing one practice, we can bring together the accumulation of merit and wisdom.
Se gun he ta singi kanta chi na mi nan da sha da yin da to ding ta se ten de ning yin zo tel ani se kham tik pen talent de that's jin do stay in de tel ani son ju dang yi cho ning ga zo ya sang dan de ngi dan de kyub na gi dang ju re ti wa re.
So what I've just explained, how to incorporate accumulation of merit and wisdom into every practice or simple action we perform with regard to incense offering, now that is applicable to every other action or practice we do. So don't consider like, that's what I can do when I do the offering practice, but maybe not when I am giving, food to a hungry person or a hungry animal. Okay, we may just give a mouthful of food either to a hungry man or hungry animal or a bird, whatever the case may be, if we do that with altruistic motivation and reflecting on the emptiness of inherent existent nature of things, basically every little action or a practice that we do, or a big practice we do for that matter, our practice is characterized by accumulations of merit and wisdom. So that's so important. We could do it with any action and practice that we do, simple or profound. Doesn't matter. Theoretically and strictly speaking, how every simple or complex act or practice can be characterized by accumulation of merit and wisdom is like if we really have bodhicitta in our mind, if we have really got insight or realization of emptiness as it is, then in those cases or situations, yes, everything we do, the positive, it is characterized by bodhicitta and wisdom, and therefore our actions help us to accumulate and fulfill accumulation of merit and wisdom. There's no doubt about it. But in our cases, I'm assuming that most of us don't have real bodhicitta in our mind. We don't have real realization of emptiness now, but nonetheless, we would like to have them and cultivate them. So in that process, what I just explained
somebody else had draw.
Something relevant to us in that we are not pretending that we have bodhicitta or we have the wisdom realizing emptiness, and therefore every action we do is being characterized by them. But we are being honest, and we are trying to cultivate bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness. So what we have is what we call contrived form of bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness. And this is as good as we get now. And as we pursue our practice in this mode, then we are able to develop bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness. So in other words, even this simple practice that I'm just trying to explain, is underneath this, what we find is a greater practice, which is we have to cultivate bodhicitta in our mind. In order to cultivate bodhicitta or the altruism, what we do need before that is we need to cultivate great compassion.
So in other words,
So in order to cultivate great compassion, then we have to really think positively so that we don't think anything or do anything that's harmful to sentient beings, but rather we are thinking positively that is helpful and beneficial to sentient beings. Because that is key to compassion, great compassion. We need to cultivate the sense of responsibility we call the willpower, that I wish sentient beings to be free from suffering and its causes, and I would like to take that responsibility to help them to do that in whatever way I can. So cultivating that sense of responsibility, the willpower, is also a key factor in developing bodhicitta. So when we develop that sense of responsibility that I would like to help sentient beings to be free from suffering and its causes, of course, then what really follows from that mindset is that I cannot do anything to harm sentient beings, but what I should be doing is do anything that is helpful and beneficial to sentient beings.
they never say and they thinking that they never say la tang e chomba shege means something shedra.
So as we cultivate that sense of responsibility, and also we, think of not harming sentient beings, but helping them in whatever we can, but in our mindset and also in terms of our practice, we must not, discriminate among sentient beings. In other words, we should not think somewhere along the line that, these are the sentient beings, the people I would really like to help, but these are the people, I really don't care, I harm them or not. They're kind of a different, brand of some kind. So we cannot, in some way, again, cultivate that kind of a discrimination, in our mind, because that doesn't work with great compassion.
That's when comes from the Shegu Malibu training us, then Lamashan comes to Shegu Malibu treasure heating thunders. Travels are Mazi here at the Tandruata. Anthony Shabbat, he turned delusions, depression, dignity, the Tayata, Tagani Dundi Shabbat. No soldier chance. Tan soldier when Shunayans. Muntru Nellis. Tell any young around to never shiver around till same troop at contrastage pie yane. They never shiver the land pap temperature doing somebody never thought that. So you seven Namchi Tus Nanguring around so. So
basically what we're talking about is how to train our mind to cultivate great compassion and have the sense of responsibility to benefit others and not harm others in any way, others meaning all sentient beings, and to cultivate bodhicitta and be like a bodhisattva. Bodhisattvas are great examples for us, and we would like to follow their footsteps. If that's what we want to do, if we want to become bodhisattvas, that's what I'm talking about here. The assumption is that we would like to be a bodhisattva. And if nobody wants to be that, then it's a different story. Geshe didn't say that, but then this doesn't apply. But if one wants to be a bodhisattva, which we think we all want to do, then what do bodhisattvas do? Bodhisattvas have tremendous, sense of patience and tolerance and really dedicated to benefit all other sentient beings. And here is a passage Geshe quoted from Guru Puja, which we call Lama Chepa. And where it says, the Bodhisattva says, even if all the sentient beings in the entire universe, which is the three world systems according to Buddhist explanation, turn out to be my enemies. All the sentient beings in the universe become my enemies for whatever reason. That they abuse me, that they beat me up, that they badmouth me, that they do all the negative things, they pile up on me. May I remain unperturbed or disturbed, me too. And instead of harming them or retaliating against them, may I bring benefits to them. That's how bodhisattvas function and think. You see, bodhisattvas has a tremendous sense of tolerance and really completely dedicated to others unconditionally. And we really would like to follow that. That's why we are training ourselves to be able to do the same thing as bodhisattvas do or think the way bodhisattvas think.
Geshe Tsultim Sanji Combat Tova Shabala, Sanji Serum Ranjuli Machina, Sanji Combat Toyamara, Sanji Serum Ranjul Kadishevina, Sanji Sembe Chagu, Sonsa, Naranzo Teya Lamtili and Dus in the Armberim, Donkin Sonsa, Natanda was let Menaya Tepe, Droyak and Dimbatangni, Sukan. Konazu Shali Kan number te Nanjutana Lendeshava in China, Dushini, Shitova Shegures.
So basically, the point I'm trying to make here is that we want to follow the footsteps of bodhisattvas, And so that we want to become bodhisattvas. And how do we become bodhisattvas? We need to cultivate bodhicitta, the altruistic mind of enlightenment. Once we have that state of mind genuinely present in us, day in and day out, then we ourselves have become a bodhisattva. And so bodhicitta, or becoming bodhisattva, is essential to become a Buddha. So without bodhicitta, one cannot be a bodhisattva. Without becoming a bodhisattva, one can never be a Buddha. Okay, so that's the whole theory we are laying out, and so we would like to make progress towards that. Everything takes a gradual steps. We are graduating towards that at the moment, even if it means making a good aspiration. How nice it would be if I can have bodhicitta or be like a bodhisattva. Let that be it. So that's how we began our practice and journey, so that we, through our mind training practice, we are able to cultivate bodhicitta and become a bodhisattva, and then advance to complete enlightened state. So you must not forget how I started off with and what are the key points I have laid out this morning.
That's our thing in this dream was Maranchole Revachamaze Taki Chogris and in Susu same time Digwani with San Rea Maris Selza Digwat San Mabzoyatan and Sanji Kumbato Delta, Yikitsamashi Choki raised and Cuban bus.
So at the very beginning, I try to make this point loud and clear, that delusions reside in our mind. Our mind and delusions are very closely together, but delusions have not contaminated the very clear light nature of our mind. Therefore, it is very possible to purify our mind of delusions. We don't have to have any suspicion or doubt here. We can completely trust here. Okay, so that's a key point. I started off.
No, nice. So that this Shabala, I think, Karasegurta, Chur Tebatan to Gamers. Then intellectuals Shinke, here, Cabashe, here they are military bear, here and the ventilation man, which gave you Yanaya. Social Ranjuli Yale Mazina the Sanji Kumbatoy Yamars.
So I laid out how theoretically possible it is, how possible theoretically it is to separate our mind and delusions from each other. But having said that, of course, that's not going to happen on its own. That requires study and practice. While study or listening to teaching is very important to learn about practices, but simply learning, as Geshe used the word intellectual, becoming an intellectual scholar in Buddhism and never practicing or have no interest to do practice, that does not serve purpose. Okay, you may learn a lot about Buddhism, you can give an excellent lecture or a talk or a teaching, but if one never practices it, well, delusions and mind will stay together. They're never separate.
Can't have a ticking the Tandamato Machinati, Susu Ranjuli Jane, Tanyanes to what you Dico, Yane says at Zani, go consumba the she, Churn Sumbati, Taranai Shevatele, Rangli, Lalin Carvatel, Yanes.
So what I'm trying to say here is, yes, is as important as it is to study Buddhism or learn about Buddhism through teaching, but whatever we learn, we need to put it into practice. What we learn is meant to be put into practice. And it could be little, because it all begins with little, but all the little things we know, we learn, we try to put it into practice. So practice is key to spiritual development.
That did told me, Yen Pember Drubat Mato, never done Messiah around Samalok, never Messiah Shen. Things are semi youngness.
So related to the bodhicitta and great compassion, I said that all of us, we should learn not to harm anybody or do anything harmful to others, but try to do what we could to help or benefit others. That
the Tarang around Samalong around me, the Samalo pay the cheddar. ane hyubi ta shige to the transfer times mishige to sawa to the ko so any subjects on the ta shavings.
As I always do, that before I go back to the text, to explain where we left off things, I try to, share a few ideas or things which I think are very helpful and beneficial to all of us. And, at times maybe these are the things that you already know. You have heard about these things many times, in which case this is a reminder. I may be not teaching you something new, but I'm definitely reminding you of what we need to do. But if you are very new to this kind of teaching, of course, then I'm giving you new information and new advices or teachings that you may like to put into practice.
Honest. That casing Kintum Machu, that Kasan Cubi must Georgie Lama Sanchuela Dampe. When you told it that Netaranko Mandusi Tabi, that the Kongam Dusma, the colored number tele. You do was that the Takaran sound of Tony, the Shabby and the Takarank in the king's on his dose.
And as I, mentioned it last, week, that in this particular section we just completed from Great Atisha's advice to Palama Changchubu, that we have gone through 46 statements from Great Atisha, and this morning again I refreshed my mind of these 46, and I realized that even if we just put those 46 statements into practice, seems like that's quite enough in some sense as a practice in our life.
Yes. That only George is the machine it is that George is any Jagata the Sabbath was just Jagad any that Tombaket of a baby Jes only that Nalindata and then make common like Chelaseta monastic that Chimbuchi that Chevy Ducinta Tachi.
I think there are some new students there, so Geshe would like to just take a moment to introduce, Great Atisha that we are talking about so much here, because if you're wondering, like, what is this, who is this Atisha, we're hearing so much. The Great Atisha is, one of great Indian Buddhist, scholar, practitioners, the realized scholars of the 11th century. And so this is like much later, Shakyamuni Buddha, who is the founding teacher of Buddha Dharma or Buddhism. And so during Atisha's time in the 11th century, there were two great, monastic universities in India. One is called the Nalanda Monastic University, from where Atisha came from, and the other is called the Vikramshil Monastic University.
Then Sonsa, that Georgie Pade and the Shade, Nalanda Kabachimbuchi, that race.
And Great Atisha, whose complete name is called Dipankar Shrijan Atisha, he was, if not the top realized scholar, he was definitely one of the greatest, realized scholars of Nalanda Monastic University, India.
That those Divina, they call Jasaki delusions.
So in the 11th century, just to cut short the whole history, that he was invited by a Tibetan king of the Western Tibet to Tibet.
Then call that user such a common will do in any penny and church tension you know.
And of course, Atisha did not stay in one place of Tibet. He traveled around different parts of Tibet, and wherever he went, he gave, different teachings.
All right. That any last that the time is that dry everything. Last and do it. Pearl don't get education and change it to a change. Dry everything they any needs accumulation. They any you become any yes, condition yes.
So now what we are going to see is this is another new set of, if you will, instruction advice Adisha gives to another great Tibetan master in a place called Tagyarba, which is quite close to Lhasa. And those of you who have been to Lhasa, maybe perhaps you might have visited this holy place called Tagyarba. Anyway, at that place, another great Tibetan teacher requested Adisha for some instruction or advice.
Tati gobo him barla dampa neseta ya hyumi tam teaching ma ta kon le kap da pamni kos pani kon mandu sine gobo hi go all gobas deta recommendation panda ani him baras ta kon him baras kon tumba iman ta tari jim but ta iman ani kon andu simata dambas kon mandu sineta project nandos.
So, maybe this Tibetan, practitioner by the name of Welkurba Yeshe Barwa. Welkurba is his family name. In the Tibetan tradition, the family name comes first, not at the end of the name, just a footnote. So he's called Welkurba Yeshe Bar, and he's a monastic practitioner or a monk practitioner. I don't know whether he really requested for instruction or not. Maybe it's the time Adisha saw that this is the right time to give him instruction. Anyway, so this is Adisha's instruction to Welkurba Yeshe Barwa at Tagyarba.
That Thomas Ikim Bawala Dampa, that's the Thomas del Dandusan. Comden Dema, Comden de Pama, Drumala Shatselos and Konkane, George Pandea de Thomas the Koran Ma Dangan Nambi Gab Thomas, and they get the Drumala and those in the Shatsen numbers.
So Adisha begins his advice instruction here with a salutation to Bhagavati Arayatara. In other words, Adisha said, I bow down to completely enlightened female Buddha Arayatara.
No. That gets you drama to conquer, and that Yidam Gahlat Zungur.
Arayatara was considered as, one of the principal meditational deities of Yidam by great Adisha.
Oh, so that Pama Drumala Shatsa. Comden Demase, Comden de says the Bangam Sigdo. That's the Bangam is a thing, the Dakaras and the Comse. Maranzo de Pekilish in the Coms, the Dini Pacha, they gave a Com the Coms. Then say at the you think that Rick some of the dampen dance that then you put so that then you put the dampen dance. They say at the Yangalin David Taban Yangalin David, Manebi Yangalin David, Comatos Minate, Comden they say at and those in Berta in Jagaki Banga Segur, in and then Aranzo Till T Toller, then they say at the King Hembra Kanjita in the Dini Pacha they came a jump in the jump say that the Koranzo Jaga Bagam say at the Danganzo they Jackie by in it and that you would tell you.
So here, the Tibetan term Chomden there, as a matter of Chom, that is a Tibetan translation of Sanskrit term called Bhagavan, and in this case, it has to be Bhagavati because it's the female, deity. Anyway, Geshe would like to explain the meaning of the Tibetan translation of Bhagavan or Bhagavati. So the Tibetan, translation, if you look at that, it says Chom. Chom means to destroy, literally. So this gives a sense of how someone who has destroyed completely the two mental obscurations. Obscuration to liberation and obscuration to omniscient state. That's Chom. Then means to possess, to be endowed with. So endowed with what? Endowed with all, remarkable qualities. In other words, all the realizations of an enlightened being. So Chom Den. So Bhagavan, well, it may be used in some other religions, for example, in Hindu they do in a footnote, but it may have a different meaning. In a Buddhist sense here, the Bhagavan, Chomden, means that one who has completely destroyed the two types of mental obscuration and one who is endowed with all the realizations, the remarkable qualities that's there to be attained. And then the Tibetan translator, in order to kind of differentiate the meaning of Bhagavan or the Chomden from, whatever the original meaning of Bhagavan in Indian literature, added another word called De. De means to go beyond, transcendental. So when we talk about Bhagavan here, we are not talking about someone who is not transcendental. This is one who has gone beyond the two types of mental obscuration and gone beyond in the sense of who has actualized everything that is there to be actualized. So Aryatara is such a person, enlightened being.
That pharmacy, pakpasi, that Gonza Karaseta Morili pharmacy do what? Pakpasi Jani, Kare Pasi at the Tereta. Dungi Koy Nelly Pani, and it Tabe Kamsal Pag in the Pazia, that pass is in the Kerasegurta. Elevating the second door, consider Kashi?
No.
And the nature chamber, the Palmas, so she nearly, so she nearly a pub in the Palmas.
So, Pagma, Arya, is a Sanskrit word, and Tibetan translation means Pagma. Pagma has a sense of transcendental, one who has gone, beyond. And transcendental in what sense? It means, one who has transcended ordinary level of existence, one who is out of samsara, if you will. That is what we call transcendental.
The high and jumping Toshidri.
So the word Pag literally has a sense of, high jump. You kind of, you're not at a lower position. You just jump high to a higher state of existence. That is kind of a very ordinary, literal sense. But here it means transcendental. You have transcended ordinary existence.
The Zamili Olympic, they will consider the Indishik door. Tang and the Indishik, then they miss Pixicot the Shiamas, and the Delishagos.
So, Geshe is kind of chuckling over this, how when you watch the Olympic Games, all these athletic competitions, who are jumping on the ropes or, doing a high jump or whatever other kind of jumps, and twists and turns they do. But amazing how they have trained themselves physically to be able to do, amazing things. But here, of course, we are not talking about doing any physical athleticism here. But we are talking about instead of mental athletic, if you will, that we want to train our mind so that we can mentally and athletically, in that sense, transcend ordinary levels.
So
if we want to do a competition, we probably don't go to the Olympics for physical athletic competitions, but we are here in the game of mental competitions.
Shots says you are the Tendamabo here, the shots Lujigon shots of Nagon, Ejigon shots was that the Limambo, that's the insurance of Hakoko Shagres, then Kiava Jagmins.
And it says Chaktsel, which literally translates as prostration, or I just say salutation. Prostration can be of different kinds. There's a physical prostration, verbal prostration, mental prostration. I just want to lay out. I don't want to take time to explain them again here today.
No, that the yes, Annie, Conga, Annie gets you drama shatse, Idam Glassons, Kona shatse. That Lama Tambana shatselos. The yes, Annie Conga, Lama.
And then next, Adisha prostrated to all his, sublime or holy gurus or masters. Of course, he had his lineage gurus as well as his direct gurus. And he says, Lama Tamadam Chatsalo, I bow down to all my holy masters or gurus. You may have heard about the term Lama, and you might have been using it a lot, but do you know what it really means? Well, Lama has a very profound sense. It's not easy to be a Lama. And so that's why in the Tibetan Buddhist literature, there's a whole, explanations about, what are the qualifications that one has to have to be a Lama, qualified Lama, and so on. So that means that requires study and investigation to find out whether someone is a qualified Lama or not. Including myself, so you could, investigate me as well.
That carries them, that carries na Bangbe Yuntin, the Dogbe Yuntin, Last Tobori, Bangbe, Bangdoje, Yuntin, Toba the Denki, the Lama, is thing about to say with that.
So, in a very nutshell, Lama or Guru, which is translation of the Sanskrit word Guru, Lama has a sense of being high on a high level. Lama means that there's nothing above that. That's the highest point. So high in what sense? In terms of realization of qualities. So basically, we can break the realizations in two types. The quality or realization that you gain from having abandoned all the things that need to be abandoned, and then quality of realization that's something that you need to accomplish. And so in the technical sense, we talk about qualities of abandonment and actualization. So Lama is someone who is high up there, in terms of both qualities.
That means that
So when we think in terms of a label or naming, there are different kinds of things. We can talk about a name in the sense of, tak means it's just an imputed label, or that it really means what it means, it's supposed to mean, meaning. Its actual name. So naming or a real name means that, something that we label something or somebody, and that the name must fit, or that thing must fit the descriptions of the name or the label. That means it really means what it's supposed to mean, and that thing or that person really has, fulfills that name, if you will. That's called naming, real name or actual name. For example, in the Tibetans, there are people with the names called Nima, means sun, and Dhamma means moon. Well, these are what are called imputed names, because they are not sun and moon. They are not solar systems. And of course, there are other names like, how somebody is called Sangha in Tibetan, but he or she is not a Buddha necessarily. It's just an imputed label or a name. Or somebody is called Kando, which means Dakini, but that's just a label. Doesn't necessarily mean that she is a Dakini. Now, when we call Shakyamuni Buddha, now that is a real name, because that's who he is.
That so
I'm just giving this kind of a sort of widen your information perspectives on this, other things which often we don't talk about. Of course, nothing in the text says that I need to explain these things to you, but I thought this may be interesting and also useful.
Rich person, the rich person, he barted and a conga pomare the ineta, the curtains are no room, that's the button draw something rich purse canambre.
Adisha addresses Virgo by Yeshe Baba as Rikipu, or noble son. Of course, he is not Adisha's son, but in more of a sort of a spiritual son, in a sense of like, spiritual lineage. And also, also calling him a noble son, son of a noble family, meaning that family in a spiritual sense. This is also a kind of a word of endearment. You know how, like, when we feel so close to someone, then we use different we use different labels and the words or the to call them, to address them. So this is one of those things here.
Churches that rankings, Koyik the Dala, Leper Gonhis, Tange, Kanang, Dandakakiba, Kanangis, and Kanamba Tunzul and Sik and Sik the Koguris, Sik Kovas and Mazi, Dandal and Never some Tonki Alkanment.
And Adisha tells him, "Oh, son of noble son, I'm going to, tell you some things, and you really should think about the meaning of these words."
That's so. The Karas Shirnas, Shitani Chagina, Himi Tuche, Minams, Shitani Chagina, Himi Tuji, the Hima Seattle. Ngaranza da hingme tu senjin hingma chagor hingma ngasi ta ali dinu senjin him senjin je hingme tuje tsene yun tongs ane hingme tuje senjin zo tse de gira tongtu le yun bo ma le kana da heji number mangwes so he goya ga nanran da pe changji number da gira mangbo res kana.
So then Adisha, goes on to tell him, in general, at this degenerated time, Nyingmetu, in the Buddhism we talk about 5 types of degeneration, or sometimes we use the 5 dregs, Nyingma, so degenerated time is one. He says, so during this degenerated time, the lifespan of human beings is short, whereas the things to learn about, we call objects of knowledge, are just innumerable.
That is, to know German, so Payabusko, Ningma say, Ningma, Hingma say, Hingma Yamute, Kojama, Ningma say, Maranzo, Chuluke, Ningma say, the Maradaste.
So when you hear the word Nyingma here, that might sound like Nyingma to your ears. They're totally different spellings and different words, So we're not talking about the Nyingma tradition of Tibetan Buddhism here. We are talking about Nyingma as in the sense of degeneration, degenerated time.
Ani, so that chetung to rest, Samalo chetung to rest. Heji Nandra Mangores, he go and die, Janji Malamada rest.
So Adisha is kind of telling him in a general sense, how during this degenerate time, human life is short, but there are too many things to learn. The objects of knowledge are innumerable. Too many things to learn, but the life is short.
Oh, yeah. Then the sonza, ane, rang chan, the cups, conga, the go, Himbal, Kanangu, the Ina, Tangaranzo Kobore, rang chan, get some tupper never mapes.
And relatedly, not only life is short, but there is so much uncertainty in our life. We don't know how long our life is going to be. You see, there's so much uncertainty with that.
There so much Murdos, Jogan, Rangan Depe, Rangan Deba Tangdal, Lama last. Tena sonza rang deba tang the lama telling about the ten job of dubris and pepper his kana do cheta the kana rest. So
then Adisha says that so therefore you should quickly pursue what you really want to accomplish. Of course, Adisha was at the time speaking to Venerable Geshe Baba, but what he really tells here is very applicable to ourselves. So we should not think like that. Oh, this is what Adisha is telling him, as if I said that has no relevance to us. We should think this is what really applies to us. That in general, during the degenerate era, human life is short. But there are too many things to learn, and also human life, we don't know how long this life is going to last. So therefore, for all those reasons, we should really quickly pursue what we really want to accomplish.
Tate karresana Cutting some congress. Ranky any rang deba down the lang balam beverages on the rang deba down the lang with the carriers and Tonjata, Musa at the Tende, Kedachimbo at the Mares.
So when it says that, so therefore, you should pursue what you really want to accomplish. Of course, Adisha is not talking about, doing some big business or making a lot of money or becoming very famous and all that.
Oh yeah, that carresna, Beba Tang the lunch, the carresna, rang Sanji turned the Sanji combat that the race. So that they, down the Mepper cheek, he said, the Jamba shoot up a shaker's gun.
So what it really means is that, to pursue what you really want to accomplish, meaning that is the complete enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that's what you should pursue as quickly as possible. Life is short, too many things to learn about. There is uncertainty with the time of death, and so therefore one should pursue quickly the complete enlightened state for the benefit of all sentient beings.
that something about Tongue, thinking about the subject Kimbo raised tongue around to think never something about Tongue.
I think this is a great advice, to all of us, and we need to, think about it. Because we see here, really Atisha is telling us about the impermanence of our life. And he talks about how we need to really work to benefit others. And he also, highlights the need to fulfill the purpose of both self and others in the ultimate sense.
Gelong Moiki Mamahista, Conchest and Giving Bakora, Muska Nasati, Gelon Sunsa, and Churandu, Seven, and not Gelon is the Labjua American. And
then Adisha says, as I told you that Virgo Yeshibaba was a monk practitioner. So here Adisha says, do not call yourself to be a monk or claim that I'm a monk. When you you pursue the worldly livelihoods and be concerned and worried about like any other lay person, and then still call yourself a monk.
So that you la sopa says that Chimbachola Tamago Mambo go to us. Tetangana Tangunation Tabara Shomata, Resumata, Taminata, Somalo and Tendricata. That's all caress and the Taba that he should be combating yet, never the Chagur. Just that the is Kanamua.
So here, the contrast is made between, a lay practitioner. Basically, the way even what Chimba means is a sense of a lay who is not monastic, and more also a sense of like, you are married, family with. So of course, when you have a family of your own, there are so many things you need to do. Life is busy, so many things to do for the family and yourself. And so as a monk who is pursuing spiritual goal, it really worries about and become busy like any ordinary married person with a family, worrying about livelihoods and all other zillions of things. Then it's a distraction. That's not right.
Young Chimba in a tendency progress. You hear Soya the Chedo, and Kali Chedo, Kangi Chedo say, and a never say, tendency and the socially use down the name of Chedo, the she progress the Kananga Mardas. Chimba in calling in Jusha.
Of course, this statement should not be read as to mean that, okay, now if I'm a layperson, then I can do all that. Atisha is not controlling that. He's not saying like, if you're a layperson, you can be busy like anything and worry about your family, everything else, and be busy and get caught up with all that worldly activities and then never think about practice or dharma. Of course, even as lay people in a spiritual sense need to renounce renounce cyclic existence.
세상아란 참말로 타바되는 얘기고 타바되는 얘기 싶어래 인중 상바 휴자고 진행하도 그거요.
So whether one is lay or a monastic doesn't matter. If we are seeking liberation or enlightenment, we need to develop aversion to samsaric existence.
Renounced zanya 저런 여버도 유튜브 말하는 게 그냥만 교육해 봤어. 그 차바다 드레버시니 그 비교단 되요.
So we must not misunderstand renunciation or ngenjung or developing aversion to samsara. It doesn't mean that if you have a lot of stuff, you need to get rid of them, or then you have to destroy everything, or break up your family or something. We're not talking about that. What we really renunciation means, in essence, is not to get attached to resources and samsara.
这样子应该做好个呢，上去了被压抑嘛，上去被就当个个差的苏康要嘛了是的。
Well, I think many of the older students may recall this example I gave, some time ago. How things we use in our life. Yes, we recognize we need to use them for survival or whatever the case may be, but do not get attached to them. And how is that possible? If you say, I give this example, like we need to go to the restroom, right? And we go to the restroom and then we use it, but nobody gets attached to the restroom. You flush it down, So that's what we're talking about.
당에 따라 싶었던서 나도 정말로 sam동 동야치 된다 인생하라 은이 먼저 상황 짱당 그랬어. 최생인데 각 지지야 말했어. 최생도 돌시고 그랬어. 최각 중이 망고여 때 야고야 말했어.
And I really mean it, whenever I talk here, I told you that as much as I'm telling you, what we all should do, I include myself in it. So I'm in the audience. I'm not telling you to do something that I don't need to do. We all must take it seriously that we don't practice by mouth. There are a lot of people who practice by mouth. It is like the mouth is the thing that, talk about dharma, it's like the mouth does the job of practice. That is not good. You see, practice is something we cultivate in our mind. Mind needs to be engaged in practice, not just mouthing dharma.
오늘 다때는 내가 인생이 알아서 강휴바 다든지 살려서 받는지 그지 정벌이 다때 그래서 세트 가능해요.
No.
강휴바 다든지 살려서 받는지 그지 정벌이
And we will stop there today, and as in a very traditional way, Geshe very poetically concluded it, as we usually the great lamas do, which is that whatever I have spoken about today, with please, if you want to sort of be kind to me, put it into practice in whatever way you can.
당아란지 최진시비 교육 자원을 때니 아니 산지지 때문에 가래
드린직 대버다 again.
Sorry.
아장라시면도 the cancer not strong again. I have a prayer request for Jesse Grieder, who I think passed away today, due to cancer.
오늘 다티 아니 근데 셀린데 바티 죄베 아니 다 신경인데 당는데 바지다 그 몇사 많이 비생기 든로 제 배 당면에 다 가랑 가상 힘이나 드링 힘이 다가다 파지 뒤집어들리는데 기부지 시고 알았어 이나 된지 참말로 안에 다 마원에 랑고 생기시라 요즘 말했어 제가 인자 된지 참말로 다 신경도 민도 내일 만흥받다 안에 미 텐진 톱니 안 산지 최된 제바다 안된데가 다 만음 제로시스.
So based upon that request for Geshe, and of course there are many humans and other beings pass away at the same time or other times. So and most of the people who die usually really they die in a very difficult situation. So they don't have much of confidence in the say that they will have a good rebirth. So it is a very difficult situation, and we think about all of them, and we send our thoughts and prayers for them that may they be able to regain a precious human life and then come under the care and guidance of qualified spiritual masters, and then through the concerted efforts may they be able to progress on paths to complete enlightened state.
Chadong Koli Chadong Gyaltsen Sangha Kala Kandu Tela Teta Chimba Series and Shachelo Ola dhamma maransu somalu ta leki du chuchin shebi ge zawala teni sanji temba rambo cheta ji yunu de nebata jawi yunu be chebi tinji sheba tamal je kuze chebi temba da tuji yunu da me me lu yongata ana chu dongke ge sho pomon ji chundi shawana isa den robata gitin je kam de da yendo mitimi guso da hene tunchi le so da me me lu yongwa.
Whatever merit we have accumulated together this morning, from my side giving you the teaching and from your side receiving the teaching, may our merit contribute to the flourishing of dharma throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other holy masters live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May this and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and may beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. Last but not least, we dedicate our collective merit, positive energy for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and may we all reach complete enlightened state quickly. tunda shumadina kan pije kusho to pe ko ke pha ja ga
ale des yo ma te kuna so ya pe sing do ne pe shu a
na o song dong na
oh that's good
Excuse me, everyone, before you even move.